This continues Chapter 6. Although it's not exactly on test number 1, it will not be completely irrelevant for test number 1 either. We're talking about permutations, and we've seen that word before. Recall 7 permute 3, written 7p3, means 7 times 6 times 5, and that was the answer to a question: how many 3-digit ordered lists or pin numbers can you make using the numbers 1 through 7 without repeating digits? You have 3 digits and you get to pick one, but then you can't repeat, so you have one less and then one less. This is still review. 7 permute 7 is, we'll look at the problem first, the number of ordered lists of 1 through 7, where you use, without repetition, all 7 digits. So that turns out to be a bit of a special case. 7p7 turns into 7 factorial divided by 0 factorial, which is 1, or just 7 factorial. So this is the one that is known as the permutations of 1 through 7. If you don't mention how long they are, they're supposed to use all the digits, and you call them the permutations. Alright, so they turn out to be very useful, and there's lots of ways to draw a permutation. Let's go for a smaller set of numbers, 1 through 4, and I'll show some of the ways of drawing them. So that first one, 4, 2, 1, 3 in the blanks, that's how I would usually draw a picture of a pin number. If you're picking an ordered list of the 4 numbers, 1 through 4, so those are filled in blanks. And if you wanted to count them, it would be 4 for possibilities for the first one, 3 for the second one, and so on. So you get 4 factorial possibilities, or 24 ways to do that. That's just one of those. So now I'm going to draw it several different ways. Let me look down first at B underneath there. That's the closest to what we did before. Sometimes people would write a permutation just by listing the outputs. Well, why do I call them outputs? Well, I'm going to mention that in a second. But they just list the numbers in order, 4, 2, 1, 3. And they do call those outputs I, and so you could call it I sub 1, I sub 2, I sub 3, and I sub 4. That's from notation from the book. So they would say the first blank is I sub 1, second blank to fill in will be I sub 2, third blank to fill in would be I sub 3, and the fourth blank to fill in would be I sub 4. So here's why they call them outputs. You can think of it as filling in for the number 1, the first blank, any of the other numbers. First, a string picture of that. That's the one I called A over here. And it shows inputs at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are the positions in the list. Then you fill them in by the outputs at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. And to draw the string picture, you show which output goes in blank 1 by drawing a string from 1 to 4. And then which output goes in blank 2 by drawing a string from 2 to 2 there, and so on. Output for 3 is 1, and the output for 4 is 3. So now we start thinking of it as a function. It's a function that goes from the set 1 through 4 to the set 1 through 4. So in C, here it is written as a function. They call it, they often call the permutation function, could be f, or they use the Greek letter phi. That's a little phi there. And then the inputs might be j, because their numbers are just going to be the inputs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the outputs. So phi of input 1 is 4, phi of input 2, phi of 2 is 2, phi of 3 is 1, phi of 4 is 3. So it's all describing the same thing, the permutation of 1 through 4. Finally, in the book, they have these pictures where they use a grid or a chessboard to show the permutation. And it's input output again, and you put the inputs 1 through 4 on the left, and the output's across the top, and then you put a 1 to show what the input goes to. So 1 goes to 4, 2 goes to 2, 3 goes to 1, 4 goes to 3. Same permutation, just a new picture of it. So this is a function, and it has to be 1 to 1. So for the function says you can't have two outputs for one input, and the 1 to 1ness says that you can't have two inputs going to the same output. That's where it says it can't be repeating. And in the picture there of the chessboard, you can see it as only one goes in each row and column. So you can only have one output for each of the inputs, and you can only have the input go to only have one input go to any given output. So that's a little bit overkill on that one permutation, but it just shows how they can show up in lots of different ways.